Hey, what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds. I'm a property investor, and in this video, I'm going to share with you the top 5 ways that I have lost money in property. If you're a property investor or you're going into property, it is so easy to lose money as well as make money. So I'm going to talk from experience right now and tell you exactly how I have lost out big time in property over the last decade or so. Firstly, if you are new to the channel, please do subscribe and turn the notification bell on. Even if you're not new, if you're not subscribed, you gotta subscribe. Also, the thumb needs to be blue and it needs to be pointing up. So smash that like button and then we're gonna get right into this. So first way, I did a previous video about this. I talked about a property on Durham Road that absolutely sucked. And this was not necessarily my fault. Sometimes you're just going to be a little bit unlucky. You're going to have the odd property that needs a lot of maintenance, there's a few repairs, the tenants might not pay rent, and when you're doing your reporting, you'll just think, man, that property's really not made much money. You're going to have the underperformers, the performers, and the overperforming properties, and that's just life. So the first way that I've lost money in property is just what happens to all property investors at some time, combined with market conditions. You see, you can buy a house and it can go up in value. It can double in value in the next 5-6 years, and you're like, yes, I did so well. Well, not really. You were kind of a little bit lucky. Now, if you've got lots of properties in lots of different areas, you're going to have some properties like I've had that have shot up and made loads of money. You're going to have some that have gone up a little bit, and you're going to have some that have just sat there really stagnant or even gone down. That can happen. That is just part and parcel of property investing. Now, if you only own one house in the world and that one house doesn't really do much, you have bad tenants, it goes down in value, you might think property investing is bad. When you have a lot of houses, it's just going to happen to some of the properties that you have got. So that's the first way that I've lost money in property. The second way, this is a little bit more my fault. Now, I've got this thing where if I've got money sat in the bank, especially a lot of money, it makes me feel really, really unhappy because I know that money in the bank is shrinking down in value. I'm not getting any interest on it. And sometimes what I have done is when I've got money in the bank, I don't like it that much that I'll invest. And you might be thinking, yeah, whatever, Samuel. No, this is the absolute God's honest truth. If I've got a lot of money sat in the bank, it makes me feel sad because I know that that money should be working hard for me. I know that it should be sat into a good investment property. So my mistake has been this. I've had money in the bank and I've not liked it and I've rushed into buying something which might not necessarily be the best property. And then what happens is when something better comes along the following week and you've just committed to buy that one, now it's like, oh, well, So what I have learned from this is it's best if you can to always have money in the bank, not as an investment. You know it's shrinking, you know it's not giving you any return on investment, but have it in the bank so that you are ready when an opportunity comes along. It's really, really nice if you can just have, and depending on where you're at, you might want 5 grand, you might want 100 grand, you might want £1 million, depends on the size of your company. But if you've got a bit of money there, it just means that should a really juicy opportunity come along, you're like, I got the finance in place. That's a really powerful position. Now, you don't want to do that so much so that you don't buy anything. You want to be buying and building, but have some cushion. One of my mistakes is I've invested all the money and it's gone, and then an opportunity's come along and I've had to miss it just because I was too quick to rinse my bank. Thirdly, how have I lost money on property? I've lost money because I've bought them and I've sold them cheaper than I bought them. And this is really painful when it happens, and sometimes it's okay to lose the pounds and then make the million. Now, what I mean by this is this. Like, I've had situations where I've bought a whole portfolio off of a landlord. I've bought like 6 or 7 houses, and I got a good deal overall, but some of the properties haven't performed too well. I've needed some cash flow to put into some really good deals, and I've got the cash in the bank because I've bought loads of houses, my money's tied up, and then I'm like, geez, I need to sell some houses. But I know that if I sell some of these underperforming houses, I'm gonna be like, that's terrible for me because I'm selling it less than I paid for it. But here's an analogy that one of my mentors said to me, and it just made me think, you know what? That is such a good analogy because I never used to do this. I used to always say every single individual one of my houses needs to make money. And if it doesn't, I'm going to sit and I'm going to hold it until it goes up in value because out of principle, every single house needs to make me money. And what my mentor said to me is, because he advised me to sell some of my little houses, and he's like, oh, sell that one, sell that. I'm like, I can't sell that one for 50 grand. I bought it for 60 grand. That's ridiculous. And what he said is, the thing is though, you've got to sell a couple of these houses because of the kings come along. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, well, you're playing property, monopoly, like you're playing chess. And sometimes you've got to sacrifice the pawn to protect the king. And if you've got a property deal, or you've got something going on, or a project, and you've got timelines on it, or if you've got an absolutely ridiculous opportunity to buy something below market value, and you can fix it up and refinance it and pull all your money out, and it's a beautiful project, and but actually you haven't got the money. But you can get the money by selling off a couple of these not so good houses. Well, you know what? That's the king, and these are the pawns. So say goodbye to the pawns, protect the king, because ultimately these pawns are never going to make you rich anyway. The king's going to make you rich. And I just thought that's so true. Sometimes we let principle and ego as well. Ego is another thing. Maybe, in my case, I might have bought a property and I've told my friends and family, I've bought this house and this is what I'm going to do with it. And then it's like, oof, actually, you know what? I want to sell this house now. And if I sell it now, it's at a loss. And your ego can be so big that you think, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm going to sacrifice the king just to not let people see my pawn go. But you know what I'd rather do? I'm playing chess. I'd rather let people go, oh my gosh, your pawn went. Oh, you're struggling. Oh. And then it's like, yeah, but I'm good. I'm still going to beat you at chess because I got my kings and queens and horses. So that's a way that I've lost money, but sometimes it's okay to lose money in those sort of circumstances. I hope you're enjoying this video, by the way. If you're learning a lot about property, comment below. Comment your thoughts below. If you haven't smashed the like button, smash it right now. Number 4, have I lost money? I have lost money. Big money in auctions. Now, when I say I've lost money in auctions, you might be thinking, oh, well, what you've probably done is you've gone to an auction and you've got wrapped up into an emotional bidding war and you've paid too much. Nope. You might think, oh, you've lost money in auction. I know, maybe you have gone to an auction and you've bid on a property and then you've got to complete on it, but you've not done surveys and stuff and you end up with a duff property. Nope. I would never do that because I'm too advanced in property to do that. Here's how I've lost money in auction. I've lost money in auction by selling properties in auction. I'll tell you a little story, and I've kind of talked about this a little bit on Samuel 365 on the coaching calls. I've never spoken about this on YouTube. I'll tell you the story. I'm still a little bit resentful. I'm still a little bit wounded, but it's okay. So before coronavirus, before all that stuff, I was selling some of my houses, and I was selling them to put them into bigger deals. And I spoke to my auctioneer, great guy, okay? He stood by me. I've done business with him in the past. Great guy, really recommend him. His name's Sam Fongo. I'll probably get him on the channel at some point. And I was putting some houses on for auction with Sam Fongo. And you know what? When I was setting the reserves, I said, this is the minimum I'll go. Bum, 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 bum. And I was, we had a conversation. I spoke to Amanda, my wife. And the idea was if we put them a little bit lower, we're going to get more interest. And then when we get more interest, we're going to get more bidders, so let's set the reserves absolutely low. You might have seen some houses where they set the reserve price. By the way, the reserve price means when you're selling from auction, if you set the reserve price on a house for £1, what that means is if someone bids on it, it's like buying from eBay. If someone bids on it and offers to buy it for £1, you've got to sell it to them for £1. Now, if they come and offer 100,000, they've got to buy it for 100,000 because that's auction terms. Now, the advantage to putting your house on for £1 is you're going to get loads of interest. It's going to make the newspapers. It's like, oh my gosh, this guy put his house on for £1 and everyone's going to come and then they're going to all bid. And then it can, because there's so much interest, it can end up actually getting a higher sale price than it would if you put it on at the actual price. Now, of course, I think that's a bit stupid putting on for £1, but I did put the reserve price uncomfortably low, should we say, uncomfortably low. Now, goes to auction. The problem is, the day it goes to auction, the same day, was the day after lockdown was announced. I'm just like, oh my goodness. At this point, this was the 2nd of April. And the 1st of April was when lockdown, I was thinking, is this some kind of a sick joke? So I got my houses, I got them low, everyone's scared. I'm even saying on my YouTube videos, buy low, buy low, buy low, buy low, don't pay. If you're not embarrassed, don't offer. And anyway, one of these guys came along and the annoying thing was this guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he's actually one of my students. He's on Samuel 365. And he bid on my house, on a couple actually. I sold a few of my houses at a low price and it stung me. And do you know what the really annoying thing is? The really annoying thing is I pulled it from the auction on the 2nd of April. I was like, I don't want to sell it from auction. I pulled it from auction, but then I pulled it from that auction, but I didn't write in to the auctioneer to say, pull it all together. I want to terminate my contract. And they automatically put it into the next auction, which was like literally just a few weeks ago. And the day before the auction, Amanda says, do you know what houses are going to auction tomorrow? And I'm like, oh, whoa. Well, we need to stop that. Like I don't even necessarily want to sell them anymore. I mean, I do, but not in auction really cheap. So I rang up the auctioneer. I was like, dude, I want to pull the houses from the auction now. He said, you can't do that. You're in terms. I'm like, okay. I said, can you just change the reserve price then? Can you hire it? He said, you cannot change the reserve price now. The auction ends tomorrow. It's an online auction, but it ends tomorrow. So I said, no problem. So I'm now praying that they don't sell in auction. I'm like, please, please, please. By the way, it wasn't ridiculously low. It was just lower than I'd like. Now, meanwhile, I've got people contacting me like James Armstrong and Alistair saying, Samuel, honestly, these houses are decent little houses. We'll buy them off you. We've got buyers. What's the reserve price? I'm like, 85 for this little 4-bed HMO. They're like, what's the value? I'm like, the value is like 100 grand or more. I'd easily sell it for 100, but the reserve is 85. They're like, well, we'll buy it for 95. So I'm praying that these houses don't sell at auction. Guess what? The auctioneer phones me the next day, says, Samuel, they've sold. I'm like, how much? And most of them sold at the reserve price. And I was just so disappointed. And I said that to him. I said, I am so disappointed. And he was like, oh, I don't want you to be disappointed. Man, you're a good customer. I felt like the auctioneer would almost tip people off. This is the reserve price. No, they wouldn't do that, okay? They wouldn't do that. So I'm wounded by that. And I wanted to share that wound with you. I guess the lessons in it are, number one, if you put a property on auction and then you pull it, make sure that when you pull it from auction, you then follow up with a letter and officially pull it. Make sure that the reserve price is a reserve price that you're actually okay with. Because initially when I went in, we were talking about the reserve price being a lot higher, and then they were like, oh, you know what, for this auction we could, so just be careful of that. But we live, we learn, we grow. Ultimately, I'm happy because the money's going to very good use. And throughout this whole period, and looking at some of my other houses, like I can bitch and whine and moan about some of the bad deals. I mean, I wanted to sell a few houses. I was looking at them across the board. I wanted to sell the houses where I'm like, you know what, the capital appreciation's been rubbish. I bought them a couple of years ago or so, and nothing's really happening. And I'll just sell them. Some of my other houses have performed, again, it goes back to underperformers, performers, and overperformers. If you have a lot of houses, you're always gonna have some that don't perform, and you are gonna lose money sometimes, as annoying as it is. So that was my fault. I take full responsibility. Number 5. This one's also my fault. I take full responsibility. I feel like I'm getting punched around by Mike Tyson. This is builders. I've lost money in property by not dealing with builders properly. It's choosing them wrongly, managing them wrongly, not having the correct terms and stuff. So I'm going to talk very briefly about that. Firstly, when you're getting builders to do a project, my advice would be find one building company. Don't find, I'll get an electrician to do the electrics, and I'll get a plumber to do the plumbing, and I'll get a carpet fit to do the carpets, and I'll get a plasterer to do the plastering, and then I'll find a painter to do the painting. Don't do that! Because then what you'll do is you're going to be a project manager of all these people, and they're going to be bickering, and they're going to be blaming each other. It's going to be more expensive. Just find a building company that will do the lot. And the building company will also act almost as a project manager as well to all the different workers. They won't get in each other's way, it'll be systemized, and it'll probably, believe it or not, end up cheaper for you. So that's the first thing, get a building company, don't get individual builders. And if you want to find a good building company, you need to just find builders on Google that have got good reviews, that promote themselves and say that they can do things like extensions, maybe even building houses from scratch. If they can do bigger stuff like that, they're going to be able to do your full refurb. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, make sure that you get with builders, because I've lost money doing this as well. Get an itemized breakdown of what they're doing. Don't just get them to say, oh, it'd be 20 grand to refurb the house. Come again? And I've literally had this. I've had builders that have said, oh, they've looked around and we've discussed what they're gonna do, and then they've said, all right, it'll be 20 grand. Pay me 10 grand now and then 10 grand upon completion. I've got no problem. Pay them 10 grand, but then what they're doing is not what we talked about. And then they'll start doing more and say, oh, well, we are going to need to obviously do, we're going to need to do this, this, and this, which we didn't talk about on the day. So that's going to be extra, and this is going to be extra, and that's going to be extra. It's like, no, but you charge me 20 grand for the full refurb. Well, yeah, we charge you 20 grand to do the main problems and the structural stuff, but the actual this, and this, that's not included in the quote. And it's like, oh, okay, well, either I'm an idiot or you're a liar or something's up. And bottom line is, you got to take responsibility. I take full responsibility. This hasn't happened recently. This is more back in the day. But you need to get a quote and you need to get a full breakdown, an itemized breakdown of every single job that they're going to do. And I would advise also, not just having an itemized breakdown, but also how much each thing is going to cost as well. So, okay, we're going to do the bathroom's going to be your fixed, and that's going to be £2,000. And then we're going to do the kitchen, and that's going to be this much. And also, not just the bathroom or the kitchen, what does that entail? Are you going to get a new bath? Are they going to do tiling? Are they going to paint it once it's finished? You need everything written down. Third thing is you need to project manage them. Now, you don't need to be necessarily full on with project managing them, i.e. there every day, but even if they're a building team and it's a company, you can't just go, anyway, good luck, tell me when you're finished, and then leave them. You need to have a WhatsApp group. You need to be asking for regular pictures and updates. You need to be going down regularly, probably once a week, but at least once a month, and looking at it and seeing how they're getting on and holding them to account, because it's human nature. If their effectively boss or employer or whoever's given them the job is not ever there and they're just on their own, they're not going to perform the same way. And if you can't be there because you're busy, then get someone to represent you and go down and oversee and make sure that the job is getting done. So get time frames, agreed timelines in place. Really important, because this is honestly, if you're doing buy, refurbish, refinance and development, the way that you're going to lose big time in property often is builders not managing them properly, not finding them properly, not having the correct contracts and guidelines in place. So anyway, that's my little painful, depressing rant over. I hope you found this useful though, because you know what, where I might have lost out or lost money, or I've put something on auction and it sold too cheap, or I've had a bad experience with the builders, or I've just generally got a property that's not performing well. But that's normal, that's okay. So let me know what you think about this video as well. Comment your thoughts below. Please do smash the like, subscribe, turn the notification bell on, and I will see you on the next video. And one more thing, if you want to see my worst ever house, you got to watch that right here. If you want to see students of mine that have performed well in property and learn from their mistakes and from their successes, check that out right here. And of course, you can subscribe down here below. Subscribe, and I'll see you next time.